Hi everyone, I've got a story to tell you that still sends shivers down my spine when I think about it. It's about how I stumbled into something I thought was innocent, a book club of all things, but it turned into a nightmare I barely escaped. I'm sharing this with you because it taught me lessons I can't keep to myself, about trusting your gut, seeing through deception, and finding strength you didn't know you had. What started as a cozy night with books became a fight for my freedom, and I want you to hear it. Not just for the chills, but for what it might mean to you. So, stick with me. This one's a wild ride. Hey, so picture this. I'm Emily, a total book nerd with a shelf that's practically groaning under the weight of novels I've collected since I was a kid. I just moved to this new city, new job, new apartment, the whole deal, and I was itching to find my people, you know? That's when I met Sarah at the library. She was flipping through some old mystery novel, and we got to chatting about our favorite reads. She seemed nice, normal even, and then she hit me with it. You should join my book club. We meet Thursdays at this cute cafe on Elm Street. Small group, big ideas. I was sold. A chance to talk books and maybe make some friends? Sign me up. That first night, I walked into the cafe, and it was like stepping into one of those cozy scenes you'd read about, soft lights, the hum of conversation, the smell of coffee hitting you just right. Sarah waved me over to a corner table where about 8 people were sitting, books in hand, smiling like they'd been expecting me. Everyone, this is Emily, Sarah said. She's new in town and loves a good story as much as we do. They were a mixed bunch. There was Mark, this retired professor type with a gentle vibe. Lisa, an artist with wild tattoos peeking out from her sleeves. David, quiet and kind of brooding, and then Sophia, the one running the show. She was maybe late 40s, with these piercing blue eyes that locked onto you like she could see right through. She had this energy, confident, almost magnetic. I liked her right away. We started with To Kill a Mockingbird. I'd read it a million times, so I jumped in, talking about how Atticus Finch was this quiet hero, standing up for what's right. Everyone chimed in, and it felt good, like I'd found my spot. But then Sophia started nudging the conversation somewhere else. What's justice to you, Emily? She asked, her voice low and steady. Have you ever had to fight for it yourself? It caught me off guard. I mean, it's a book club, not a therapy session, right? But I went with it, told them about this protest I joined in college. Nothing huge, just me and some friends trying to make a point. They all listened, nodding, and Sophia gave me this look like I'd passed some test. The night wrapped up with her handing out The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. It's about chasing your destiny, she said. Think about your own path as you read it. I left feeling buzzed, new friends, new book, new start. But there was this tiny itch in the back of my mind. Sophia's questions, the way she watched us, it was intense, more than I expected. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and I'm a regular. Thursdays become my thing. The cafe, the group, it's all starting to feel like home. But the more I go, the less we talk about the books. Sophia's always there, steering us into these deep talks about life, purpose, stuff that's interesting but weird for a book club. One night, she's going on about soul purification, how we've got to shed our baggage to find our true selves. I'm sitting there, sipping my coffee, thinking, okay, this is getting heavy. The others are eating it up, staring at her like she's some guru. I glance at Mark, at Lisa, and they're just nodding, totally hooked. I try to pull us back. Hey, what about Santiago in The Alchemist? That part where he finds the treasure. Wasn't that wild? I said, hoping to lighten things up. Sophia just smiled, this tight little smile, and said, Santiago's story is a mirror for us, Emily. It's not about the book. It's about what's inside you. I blinked. Sure, but I kind of wanted to talk about the book, you know? Oh, quick pause. Since we're here, I've got to say, if you're liking this story so far, hit that subscribe button for me. My channel's growing fast, and it'd mean a lot to have you along for more tales like this. Cool? Alright, back to it. So, after that meeting, I'm walking home, and I can't shake this weird vibe. The group's great, but Sophia's got this hold on them that's starting to freak me out. It's like they're worshiping her or something. I told myself I was overthinking it, new city, new nerves, whatever. A few days later, I caught Lisa outside the cafe after another meeting. She's chill, artsy, someone I thought I could talk to. Hey, Lisa, I said, keeping it casual. Don't you think things are getting kind of intense? We barely talk books anymore. She froze for a second, then gave me this nervous laugh. That's just Sophia. She digs deep. It's all part of it. Part of what? I wanted to ask, but she dodged it, asking me about The Alchemist instead. I let it slide, but it stuck with me. That night, lying in bed, I kept turning it over. Something wasn't right. Part of me wanted to bail, ditch the whole thing. But I'd started to like these people, Sarah's warmth, Mark's quiet wisdom, even Lisa's quirks. And yeah, I was curious. What was Sophia driving at with all this talk? I figured I'd give it a few more weeks, see where it went. Worst case, I'd ghost and call it a day. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't have guessed, was that those weeks were about to flip my world upside down. That little book club? It was just the start of something way darker than I ever imagined. So I kept going to the book club. I mean, why wouldn't I? They were my people now, or at least that's what I told myself. But looking back, I can see how it all started to shift, like the slow creep of shadows you don't notice until the light's almost gone. It wasn't one big thing that tipped me off. It was a bunch of little things, stacking up like whispers in the dark. It started with the meetings. At first, it was just Thursdays, but then Sophia suggested we meet more often. We're on a journey together, she said one night, her voice smooth as silk. Why limit ourselves to once a week? Everyone else nodded, their eyes bright with this weird excitement. I remember thinking, journey? What journey? But I didn't say anything. I just smiled and agreed, like it was no big deal. Before I knew it, we were meeting 3 times a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. It felt like a lot, but I didn't want to be the odd one out. Then came the assignments. Sophia started giving us these tasks between meetings. Think of them as reflections, she'd say. At first, it was simple stuff like writing about a time you felt truly free, or listing your biggest fears. I'd scribble something down, thinking it was just part of the book club vibe. But then the assignments got weirder. One week, she asked us to bring in something personal, something we'd never shown anyone. I brought an old locket my grandma gave me. Harmless, right? But when I handed it to her, she held it like it was a sacred relic, her eyes boring into mine. This is a piece of your soul, Emily. Thank you for trusting us with it. I laughed it off, but inside, I felt this tiny knot tighten. The group started to feel like its own little world. We had inside jokes, secret handshakes, stuff that made us feel special, like we were part of something bigger. Sophia called us the Seekers, which I thought was kind of cheesy, but everyone else loved it. They'd say things like, only seekers understand, or the outside world just doesn't get it. I'd nod along, but part of me was like, get what? We were reading books and talking about life, not decoding the universe. That's when I met Claire. She was new, like me, but quieter, always hanging back. One night, after a meeting, she caught me outside the cafe. Hey, Emily, she whispered, glancing over her shoulder like she was afraid someone might hear. Don't you think this is getting a little intense? I blinked, surprised. Finally, someone else who felt it too. Yeah, I said, relieved. It's a bit much, right? All this soul-searching stuff. She nodded, her eyes wide. I tried to skip a meeting last week, and Sophia called me. She said I was falling behind and needed to commit to the path. It creeped me out. I frowned. Sophia had never called me like that, but then again, I hadn't missed a meeting. Maybe she's just really into it, I said, trying to brush it off. Claire shook her head. No, it's more than that. I've been to other groups, and this feels different. Like, cult-wide different. The word hung in the air between us, cult. I laughed, but it came out nervous. Come on, it's just a book club. They're a little intense, sure, but a cult? That's a stretch. Claire didn't laugh. She just looked at me, her face pale in the streetlight. Be careful, Emily. I'm thinking of leaving. And then she was gone, slipping into the night. I didn't see Claire after that. She stopped coming to meetings, and when I asked Sarah about her, she shrugged. Some people aren't ready for the truth, she said, like it was no big deal. I wanted to ask what truth she was talking about, but something in her tone stopped me. It was like a wall had gone up, and I was either in or out. The assignments kept coming, and they kept getting stranger. One week, Sophia asked us to write letters to our past selves, confessing our biggest regrets. We had to read them out loud in front of everyone. I remember standing there, my voice shaking as I admitted things I'd never told anyone, mistakes I'd made, people I'd hurt. The group listened, silent, and when I finished, Sophia hugged me. "You're free now," she whispered. "You've shed that weight." I felt raw, exposed, but also lighter. Like maybe she was right. But then came the night that really shook me. We were at Sophia's house. Another change. We'd started meeting there instead of the cafe. It was this big, old Victorian place, all creaky floors and dim lights. That night, she led us to the basement. I remember thinking, why the basement? But I followed, like everyone else. The room was lit with candles, and in the center was a circle of chairs. Sophia stood in the middle, her face glowing in the flickering light. "Tonight," she said, "we're going to confront our shadows." She had us sit in the circle, close our eyes, and visualize our worst fears. Then, one by one, we had to share them. Mark went first, talking about his fear of dying alone. Lisa admitted she was terrified of losing her creativity. When it was my turn, I hesitated. My heart was pounding, and the air felt thick, like it was pressing in on me. I'm afraid of being trapped," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "of not being able to escape." Sophia's eyes locked onto mine, and she smiled, this slow, knowing smile. "Good," she said. "Now, face it." She made me stand in the center of the circle, blindfolded. The others started chanting, softly at first, then louder. It was just my name, over and over. Emily, Emily, Emily. I could feel their breath on my skin, their voices swirling around me. Panic clawed at my throat. I wanted to rip off the blindfold, to run, but I couldn't move. It was like I was frozen, trapped in this nightmare. And then, just as I thought I'd scream, Sophia's voice cut through. "You're free now, Emily. You've faced it." The chanting stopped. The blindfold came off. I stumbled back to my chair, my legs shaking. After that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying it in my head. The basement, the chanting, the way Sophia's eyes seemed to glow in the dark. I told myself it was just a weird exercise, that they were trying to help me. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Claire's warning echoed in my mind. Cult, why different? I started to notice how the group was pulling me in, how I was spending all my time with them, how I'd stopped calling my old friends, stopped going out. It was like they were becoming my whole world, and I wasn't sure how it had happened. I decided to test the waters. The next meeting, I told Sophia I couldn't make it. I had a work thing, I said. Her face tightened, just for a second, before she smiled. "Of course, Emily. But remember, the path waits for no one." It was a strange thing to say, but I let it go. That night, I stayed home, tried to relax, but my phone kept buzzing. Texts from Sarah, from Lisa, even from David. "Missed you tonight. Hope everything's okay. You're still with us, right?" I stared at the messages, my stomach twisting. It was like they were checking on me, making sure I hadn't slipped away. And maybe that's when I should have left. Packed my bags, changed my number, moved to another city. But I didn't. I told myself I was being paranoid, that they were just concerned friends. Besides, I'd put so much into this group. I didn't want to throw it all away over a few weird moments. So I went back. And that's when things really started to unravel. Looking back, it's wild how easy it was to slip deeper into the group without even realizing it. It's like when you're in a car going downhill, slow at first, then suddenly you're picking up speed, and before you know it, the brakes don't work. That's how it felt with the book club, or whatever it was by then. The little things I'd brushed off started to pile up, and I couldn't ignore them anymore. But here's the thing. Part of me didn't want to. Part of me was still hooked, still craving that sense of belonging, even as the red flags waved right in my face. It started with the isolation. Sophia had this way of making the group feel like the only place that mattered. "The outside world is full of noise," she'd say, her voice soft but firm. Here, with us, you can find peace. You can find truth. At first, it sounded comforting, like we were this little oasis in a chaotic world. But then I noticed how the others stopped talking about their lives outside the group. No more mentions of family dinners or weekend plans, just endless chatter about the next meeting, the next assignment, the next breakthrough. When I brought up my job or my old friends, they'd smile politely, but the conversation always steered back to the group. It was like nothing else existed. I tried to keep one foot in the real world, but it was getting harder. My boss started giving me side-eye for showing up late, bleary-eyed from late-night meetings. My friends, well, the few I still had, stopped inviting me out after I'd canceled one too many times. "You're always with that book club," my friend Jess said over the phone, her voice sharp. "What's going on, Emily? It's like you've disappeared." I laughed it off, told her I was just busy, but her words stuck with me. Disappeared. Was that what was happening? Then there was Sophia. She was everywhere now, not just at meetings, but in my head. She had this way of making you feel seen, like you were the most important person in the room. When she looked at you, it was like she could read your soul. "You're special, Emily," she'd say, her hand resting on my shoulder. "You have a gift. Don't waste it on people who don't understand you." It felt good, you know? To be told you're special, especially when you're in a new city, feeling a little lost. But there was something else in her gaze, something hungry, like she was feeding off our admiration. The assignments kept coming, and they kept getting more intense. One week, Sophia asked us to cut ties with someone who was holding us back. She called it pruning the dead branches of our lives. I remember sitting there, my stomach twisting, as Lisa talked about ghosting her sister because she didn't support her journey. Mark admitted he'd stopped talking to his son. And me? I didn't have anyone left to cut off. My friends had already drifted away. But Sophia turned to me, her eyes gleaming. "Emily, who's holding you back?" she asked. I froze. I don't know. I stammered. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes.
"Think hard," she said.
"There's always someone." That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. "There's always someone." The words echoed in my mind, cold and sharp. I thought about Jess, about how she'd called me out. Was she holding me back? Or was she trying to save me? I didn't know anymore. The lines were blurring, and I was starting to lose track of what was real. But the real turning point, the moment I knew I was in too deep, came during one of the ceremonies. That's what Sophia called them now. Ceremonies, not meetings. We'd gather in her basement, the air thick with incense and candle smoke, and she'd lead us through these rituals that were supposed to cleanse our spirits. At first, it was just meditation, deep breathing, that kind of thing. But then it got darker. One night, she brought out a small wooden box. "Tonight," she said, her voice low and reverent, "we're going to release our pain." She opened the box, and inside were these tiny glass vials, each filled with a dark liquid. "This is a special elixir," she explained. "It will help you confront your deepest fears." My heart started pounding. Elixir? That sounded like something out of a horror movie. But the others were already reaching for the vials, their faces calm, trusting. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the box. Sophia noticed. "Emily," she said, her tone gentle but firm, "you have to trust the process. You have to trust me." I wanted to say no. Every instinct in my body was screaming run, but I couldn't. The others were watching, their eyes soft with encouragement. I didn't want to let them down. So, I took the vial, my fingers trembling, and drank. The liquid was bitter, metallic, and it burned going down. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the room started to spin. The candle flames blurred, and the walls seemed to close in. I heard whispers, soft at first, then louder, like a chorus of voices in my head. I couldn't make out the words, but they were angry, accusing. I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't work. I was trapped, sinking into the chair, into the floor, into the darkness. And then I saw it, my fear, my worst nightmare, playing out like a movie in my mind. I was alone, completely alone, in a vast, empty space. No one to hear me, no one to help. I screamed, but no sound came out. It was like being buried alive, suffocating under the weight of my own isolation. I don't know how long it lasted, minutes, hours, but when I finally came to, I was curled up on the floor, sobbing, with Sophia kneeling beside me, stroking my hair. "You did it, Emily," she whispered. "You faced your shadow. You're stronger now." But I didn't feel stronger. I felt broken, violated, like something had been taken from me. The others were huddled around, their faces glowing with this eerie satisfaction, like they'd witnessed something sacred. I wanted to scream at them, to demand what the hell was in that vial, but I was too weak, too shaken. Instead, I let Sophia help me up, let her wrap me in a blanket, let her tell me how proud she was. That night, I stumbled home, my mind racing. What had I just experienced? Was it a hallucination? A drug? And why had I let it happen? I thought about Claire, about her warning, about how she'd vanished. I thought about Jess, about how she'd tried to reach me. I thought about my life before the group, before Sophia, and how far away it all seemed now. But here's the thing. Even then, I didn't leave. I couldn't. It was like I was caught in a web, and every time I tried to pull away, the threads tightened. Part of me still believed, still wanted to believe, that Sophia was helping us, that the group was special, that I was on some kind of path to enlightenment. It's amazing what you can convince yourself of when you're scared and alone. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. And I knew that if I didn't find a way out soon, I might never escape. You know that feeling when you're standing on the edge of a cliff, and part of you wants to jump just to see what happens? That's where I was, teetering between staying and leaving, between believing and doubting. The group had its hooks in me, deep, and every time I tried to pull away, something dragged me back. But the cracks were showing now, and I couldn't ignore them anymore. I was starting to see the truth, and it terrified me. It all came to a head during what Sophia called the Night of Revelation. She'd been hyping it up for weeks, saying it was the most important ceremony yet, the one that would unlock our true potential. I didn't know what that meant, but the way she said it, like it was life or death, made my skin crawl. The others were buzzing with excitement, talking about how this was the moment they'd been waiting for.
Me?
I just felt dread, this heavy, sinking feeling in my gut. The ceremony was set for a Friday night, at Sophia's house, of course. But this time, it wasn't in the basement. She led us through the back door, out into the woods behind her property. It was pitch black out there, the kind of dark that swallows you whole. We followed her down a narrow path, the trees closing in around us, branches snagging at our clothes like bony fingers. I remember thinking, this is how horror movies start. But I kept walking one foot in front of the other because that's what you do when you're in too deep. You keep going, even when every instinct screams stop. We reached a clearing, and there it was. A circle of stones, candles flickering in the center, and a wooden altar draped in red cloth. It looked like something out of a nightmare, like we'd stepped into some ancient ritual site. Sophia stood by the altar, her face glowing in the candlelight, and for the first time, I saw her for what she was. Not a mentor, not a friend, but something else, something dangerous. "Tonight," she said, her voice echoing through the trees, "we shed our old selves. Tonight, we become who we were meant to be." The others gathered around her, their eyes wide, almost trance-like. I hung back, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Sophia raised her hands, and the group fell silent. "Each of you will offer a sacrifice," she continued. "Something that ties you to your past, to your fears. Burn it in the fire, and you will be free." One by one, they stepped forward. Lisa tossed in a sketchbook, her hands shaking. Mark threw in a photo, his face twisted with emotion. Sarah, sweet, gentle Sarah, dropped in a necklace, tears streaming down her cheeks. And then it was my turn. Sophia turned to me, her eyes locking onto mine. "Emily," she said, "what will you sacrifice?" I froze. I hadn't brought anything. I didn't want to sacrifice anything. This wasn't right. This wasn't what I signed up for. I don't have anything," I stammered. The group gasped, like I'd said something blasphemous. Sophia's smile faltered, just for a second, before she stepped closer, her voice low and soothing. That's okay, Emily. Sometimes the sacrifice isn't a thing. Sometimes it's a part of yourself. Let go of your doubt. Let go of your fear. Give it to the fire. I stared at the flames, flickering and hungry. The air felt thick, oppressive, like it was pressing in on me from all sides. I could feel the group's eyes on me, waiting, expecting. And in that moment, something snapped. I couldn't do it. I couldn't pretend anymore. No, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Sophia's eyes narrowed. What did you say? I swallowed, my throat dry. I said no. I'm not doing this. The silence that followed was deafening. No one moved, no one spoke. Then, slowly, Sophia smiled. This cold, predatory smile that sent chills down my spine. Emily, she said, her tone dripping with false sweetness, you're not thinking clearly. You're letting your fear control you. Let us help you. She reached out, her hand hovering over my shoulder, but I jerked back. Don't touch me, I snapped. The others gasped again, and I saw the shock on their faces, shock and something else, something like betrayal. I turned to leave, but the path was blocked. David and Mark had stepped in front of me, their expressions blank, like they were under some spell. You can't leave, David said, his voice flat. Not until you've completed the ceremony. My heart raced. What are you talking about? I'm done. I'm going home. But they didn't move. Sophia stepped closer, her eyes gleaming in the dark. Emily, you don't understand. This is your family now. We're your family. You can't just walk away. That's when it hit me, the word Claire had used, the one I'd laughed off. Cult. This wasn't a book club. It wasn't even a weird self-help group. It was a cult, and I was trapped in the middle of it, surrounded by people who'd been brainwashed into thinking Sophia was their savior. Panic surged through me, sharp and cold. I had to get out. I had to run. But before I could move, Sophia grabbed my arm, her grip like iron. You're not leaving, she hissed, her face inches from mine. Not until you see the truth. I tried to pull away, but she was stronger than she looked. The others closed in, forming a tight circle around me. I was trapped, caged by the very people I'd once called friends. And then, out of nowhere, I heard a voice, Claire's voice, echoing in my mind. Be careful, Emily. I'm thinking of leaving. She'd seen it too, and she'd tried to warn me. But where was she now? Had she escaped, or had they done something to her? The thought sent a fresh wave of terror through me. I had to get out. I had to fight. With a burst of adrenaline, I wrenched my arm free and shoved past David, stumbling toward the trees. Stop her, Sophia shouted, her voice sharp and commanding. I didn't look back. I just ran, crashing through the underbrush, branches whipping at my face, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind me, I could hear them, footsteps, voices closing in. I don't know how long I ran. It felt like hours, but it was probably only minutes. My legs burned, my lungs screamed, but I kept going, driven by pure fear. And then, just when I thought I couldn't run anymore, I saw it. A light, faint but steady, through the trees. A house. Civilization. Safety. I burst out of the woods and onto a quiet street, gasping for air, my heart hammering in my chest. I looked back, but the woods were silent. No footsteps, no voices. They hadn't followed me. Or maybe they had, and they were just waiting, watching from the shadows. I didn't stick around to find out. I ran to the nearest house, banged on the door, and when a startled old man answered, I begged him to call the police. I'll never forget the look on that old man's face when he opened the door and saw me. Wild-eyed, covered in scratches, gasping for breath. He didn't ask questions. He just pulled me inside, locked the door, and called the police. I collapsed on his couch, shaking, while his wife brought me a blanket and a cup of tea. It was such a simple, kind gesture, but in that moment, it felt like the warmest thing in the world. For the first time in months, I felt safe. The police came quickly. I told them everything about the book club, Sophia, the ceremonies, the chase through the woods. They listened, their faces serious, and when I finished, one of them nodded. "We've had our eye on that group for a while," he said. "You're not the first to come forward." My stomach dropped. Not the first. That meant there were others like Claire, maybe, who'd tried to escape. I asked about her, but they wouldn't say much, just that they'd look into it. They drove me home, and I spent the next few days in a haze, jumping at every noise, checking the locks on my doors over and over. I didn't leave my apartment, didn't answer my phone. I was too scared, too paranoid. What if they came after me? What if Sophia wasn't done with me yet? But as the days passed, nothing happened. No strange calls, no shadowy figures lurking outside. It was like the group had vanished, or maybe they'd just moved on to someone else. Eventually, I started to piece my life back together. I quit my job, too many memories of late nights and missed deadlines, and found a new one, something quiet, low-key. I reached out to Jess, my old friend, and apologized for disappearing. She was wary at first, but when I told her what had happened, her voice softened. "I'm just glad you're okay," she said. "You scared me, Emily." We met for coffee, and for the first time in months, I felt like myself again, like the fog had lifted and I could see clearly. But the experience left its mark. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been inches away from losing myself completely. How had I let it happen? How had I fallen so deep into Sophia's web? I spent a lot of time thinking about that, replaying every moment, every choice. And slowly, I started to understand. It wasn't just about the group or Sophia's manipulation. It was about me, about the parts of me that were lonely, that craved connection, that wanted to believe in something bigger. Sophia had seen that, and she'd used it. She'd preyed on my vulnerabilities, on my need to belong. And in a way, I'd let her. I'd ignored the warning signs, silenced my own doubts, because I wanted so badly to be part of something. But here's the thing, that need to belong, to find your tribe, it's not wrong. It's human. We all want to feel connected, to feel like we're not alone in this big, messy world. The trick is learning to trust yourself along the way, to listen to that little voice inside, the one that says, "Hey, this doesn't feel right." I'd ignored that voice for too long, and it almost cost me everything. In the end, though, I found my way back. And weirdly enough, I have Sophia to thank for that, because if she hadn't pushed me to the edge, I might never have learned how strong I really am. I faced my worst fears in that basement in those woods, and I out the other side. Bruised, yeah, but not broken. And that's something. A few months later, I got a call from the police. They'd raided Sophia's house, arrested her and a few others. The group was done, disbanded. They found Claire too. She was okay, living in another state, trying to start over. I cried when I heard that, relief flooding through me. She'd made it out, just like I had. I don't know what happened to the others. Lisa, Mark, Sarah. Part of me hopes they woke up, saw the truth, and got out. But I'll probably never know. And honestly, I'm okay with that. I've learned that sometimes you have to let go, to trust that people will find their own way, just like I did. These days, I'm more careful. I still love books, always will, but I'm not rushing to join any clubs. Instead, I've started hosting little gatherings at my place, just a few friends, a pot of tea, and a good story. No assignments, no ceremonies, no sacrifices. Just people sharing what they love, no strings attached. It's simple, but it's real, and that's enough for me. So, why am I telling you all this? Because I want you to know that it's okay to search for meaning, to look for your people. But don't lose yourself in the process. Trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. And remember, you're stronger than you think. Even when the world gets dark, even when you're scared, you've got what it takes to find your way back. Thanks for sticking with me through this wild ride. If you've made it this far, you're probably wondering what's next. Well, I've got more stories, some spooky, some heartfelt, all worth hearing. So, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. My channel's growing fast, and I'd love for you to be part of it. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and always, always trust yourself.